Not many people think about saving their runs, but it is very helpful to save your runs because us as your Miles Care support team, we want to be able to support you the best way we can. And by doing that, by saving your runs, that does help us to do that. So right now I'm going to go over the terminal connectivity, and so you can see exactly what's on your terminal. So I'm going to grab a terminal, which I have right here, exactly what we're looking at. So just so you have an understanding of all the ports and everything that you can do with this. So on the back of the terminal, we have a LAN connection. This is for connecting to a local area network. We have 4 USB ports here, and we have one at the top. These USB ports can be used to put in a USB stick. You can only use one at a time for saving them. And then you can save runs directly to the stick and also to the LAN. With the 4 USB ports, you are also able to connect a USB keyboard and mouse if you'd like to. The video ports are going to be for the ETHOS for the camera, the safe view camera, and then your devices where you, of course, you can connect your ETHOS. So when you're done with your run, you want to go ahead and save your run. Some people do not. Most people will save it. It depends on how you operate in your lab. So the way you would save a run is, let's look at this run here, which is completed. I'll click on the click down arrow, and then I'll select save. When I select save, I'm going to have this box pop up, which will prompt me to save to either a USB stick or a server if I'm set up for that. The next slide will talk about how to set up the server. When you save your runs, you're going to generate 4 different files. The first one is going to be, and the most important, is the DPR file. That's the file extension. This is going to be an archive file for any diagnostic use. We like this because it allows us, if you send us this file, to load this onto any of our terminals. So we can load it as if we did the digestion ourselves. We can see how the instrument behaved. So anytime that you have an issue with any digestions, please send us this data. If you send it to us on the front end, it just makes it easier and faster for us to help you. We also have an XLS, which is going to be a 2003 format of Excel. So that's going to include any raw temperature data. So that's going to be the graph from your temperature curve, which you are able to reproduce, say, if you wanted to put it in a paper, for example. We also have a bitmap of the file run, a BMP, and a PDF and a report that has everything. For those of you who may have purchased an ETHOS Up in the last year or so, we do have the ability to autosave. So check the manual of your system, and you can go into the settings and see if this is available. You can turn this on in the terminal settings. If you do want to know if you did purchase your instrument in, say, the past year and a half or so, this is most likely you're able to do this. You can contact us and we can see if it is available on your system. So then what this would do is it would take out the need to have to manually save, and you can automatically save to either a USB or a server without you having to think about it. So next, I'm going to go over a little bit, not too much detail, but how you would connect your ETHOS up to a local area network. This is very useful because this allows you to save your runs on an external server. I actually use this in our lab here because I'm able to save any of my runs, and then on my server I can go to my laptop and access all of the data. Then I can use this in my reports that I use for customers, etc. So I find it very useful for myself. Important that you want to disable this. If you're familiar with IT speak, you want to turn off this thing called DHCP. You want that to be off. If you have DHCP on, you may have to re-enter in your IP address every few months. So make sure you turn that off. Of course, you can use this given it is allowed by your company's IT policy. So first check with them. And what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you want to enter in an IP address, but you want the IP address, you don't want to enter in just anyone. Speak to your IT department, because if you enter in a random IP address, you can clash with something else on the network, and we don't want that. So make sure to consult your IT department. They can provide you with an unused IP address. Also, what you'll do is you enter in your username and password that you use to access your local server. And then what you'll do is on your server, you're going to create a folder called T660. And then you're going to point, if you're using the NFS or CIFS, you're going to point this directly to that file. When I enter in my server, I usually use the IP address. your internal IP address for that, and then you can browse. That'll get you there. You can refer to this, and what I've spoken about earlier is also available in the user manuals. So the user manuals do talk about this in more detail. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about rotor and vessel maintenance. So this is what's really going to be be used the most and have the most wear and tear of your system are the vessels, because you're using to digest your samples. So first, let's talk about, for those of you who may have the SK15 with the high pressure rotor. These screenshots are taken right from the manual. So if you do refer to the SK15 Easy Temp user manual, all of this is in greater detail there, but I just wanted to summarize it for you here. A few things you're going to check is on your springs may look like this, or they may be the darker brown that you see in the picture there. You want to examine the bottom part here just to make sure that there's no cracks or deformation, and if there are, you want to replace that. It's important to remember too that you do not want to rinse these under water to clean them. Simply use a damp paper towel and to wipe them off. Another thing you want to do every few months is the pressure screw inside your segment. You can actually use a PTFE spray to lubricate this. What that will do is that will make sure that when you are tightening down with the torque wrench, when you're tightening that down here, you're going to the exact setting that this is set for. Therefore, it will make sure that if you do vent, your vessel has to, it will be closer, it will be at 100 bar where it's supposed to be. So what you can do is you can just simply remove this screw, that's what I have here, and then I would take something such as a dry lube, a Teflon spray, and then the way I would do it is hold it up like this and just give it one small spray. Once you do that, let it dry, because you want to make sure it's completely dry before you put it in the microwave or put it back. Once it's dry, you can go ahead and put it, and what I would do is you would screw it all the way down and all the way back up to disperse the Teflon spray throughout the threads. Another thing to consider for when you're cleaning the inside, cleaning your segments, is the bottom plates of your rotors. So these have little balls in them. You may or may not have actually turned your rotor upside down, but over time you can get some debris in here, which may be from the inside of your microwave. And what you also might see inside your microwave are some darker lines. I'll show you how to clean those. So you would spray this out either with a canned air or a compressor, then lubricate with the PTFE spray. This is done about every 6 months or so. Last thing I want to show you for maintenance, on the inside, if we remove this piece, which holds my rotors, I can take this out. Now, if you see the lines here, I could simply use some alcohol to clean those off. And then I will just place that right back into my system and put my spindle back on that holds my rotor. Then lastly, for the SK15, you do want to check your TFM components. These are really what get the most use and the most wear and tear. So inspect these, make sure that they're not deformed or cracked or have any light spots. So if you hold it up to the light, you want to make sure you don't see anything coming through. Look around the top, make sure that this is flat and you don't have a white opaque line starting to form here, which is a sign that you've been beating on that vessel pretty well. If you ever have a question on whether or not something needs to be replaced, you can always ask us. So for the Maxi 24 and the Maxi 44, the base plate is the base plate, bottom plate, which is here, is going to be the same maintenance that I just showed you. So that's cleaning it out with alcohol and then lubricating. But for your Maxi vessels, you want to check these just the same as you would. So if they're cracked, deformed, the same way you're going to inspect your SK vessels, you're going to inspect these as well. For your Maxi 44 or your Maxi 24, going to be essentially the same care. Now, I looked at some of the questions that you had submitted beforehand, and it's nice somebody actually asked this question: how do I bake out my vessels with NOx if they have NOx contamination? So over time, as you're performing your digestions, your TFM components will absorb and accumulate NOx gas. This is because your nitric acid decomposes and forms NOx as part of the oxidation process of breaking down your organic material. And TFM, when you heat it up, can be a little porous and it will absorb some of that gas. Typically, our components, our vessels, and everything are invisible and transparent to microwave energy. What happens is over time, as NOx gas accumulates, if we take a look at this vessel, this is a bit orange compared to what a standard vessel would look like. So this vessel, I'd want to do a test and see if it's absorbing. NOx is absorbed by your TFM vessels, and that causes the vessels to heat up. So that's not something we want to happen because we don't want to heat the vessel too hot. So first thing you would do is you would clean your components. So you wouldn't want any sample or anything in there. Make sure they're clean and dry. Then you're going to place them in the microwave as you see here. So the top is going to be your Maxi 44. You're going to take off the top plate on the Maxi 44 and the Maxi 24. For the SK15, you're simply going to place them on the rotor body just like that. Then what you're going to do is you're going to run a microwave program. If you're using less than or equal to 6 vessels, you're going to use the 45 seconds at 450. And then if you're using more than 10, you would use 600 watts. So what we're doing is at the end of this test, we're going to be holding our vessels and we want to see, are they absorbing microwaves or not? So are they hot or warm? If they are, we want to take our vessels and put them into an electrical oven to remove the NOx gas which has been absorbed into the TFM. We do this at 160 degrees Celsius overnight for a minimum of 6 hours. If you do have the ability to ventilate near your electrical oven, that would be helpful because you are going to be releasing some NOx gas in here. So if you can put it near the fume hood or ventilate if possible, that would be ideal. This is also described in detail in the manual. So for calibration of our easy temp, this is just a test to make sure that we are able to, that our easy temp is working properly. So what we do is we take a vessel, such as our SK15 here, and we'll fill this with about 30 mils of DI water. Then we're going to place it in the microwave as shown on the right, without the cover. So you're going to have your vessel in your peak shield and then in your segment that goes in. For your Maxi 44 and Maxi 24, you have the internal and the external rings. You're going to test both of those as you see here. And this procedure is also outlined in the manuals. Then you'll go into the program and load ET test. You do the microwave method, and then you should end up, because we're in an open vessel with water only, this is the only time you're going to run anything with an open vessel, is doing an easy temp calibration verification with water. Following the test, you should be within about 10 degrees Celsius of the boiling point of water. If the test fails, you'll want to clean the sensors and covers and replace any of the covers if applicable, then retest. Ideally, this is something you'd want to do weekly, should only take a few minutes. So for care of the easy temp sensors, I'm going to look at what we have in here. What you want to do, and this is also in the manual as well, clean these off with, you probably have been supplied with some Q-tips or cotton swabs that look just like this. So you're going to use these to clean your sensors. Remove any dust from them if there is any. Use a cotton swab with alcohol, and then replace the sensor covers if needed. So you should have also received some additional sensor covers that look like these. And these sensor covers are only going to be on your contactless sensors if you have an SK15, which it would be in the back, or the Maxi 24 on the left. If you have a multi setup, you're going to have two sensors that have two caps on them.